feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, this is Mark Scribner, your host of The Shrimp Tank, the #1 entrepreneurial podcast in America right now. The Shrimp Tank is nationally syndicated through iHeart, Stitch, Google, basically anywhere that you can get your podcast, you can subscribe to us. We'd love to get your followership, so if you just smash that like button and the subscription button, you'll get alerted to this show and all the shows across the country. The tagline of the show is where book smarts and street smarts collide. I actually have a really good friend of mine that I met 13 years ago in a previous life when I was entertaining and doing Ironman with him. His name is Andrew Salmon, and he's the Chief Future Officer of SALMON Health and Retirement. It's an organization that is definitely a premium product. One of the things that's really cool about Andrew is he's very visible on LinkedIn and talking about his core principles and his beliefs and how they run the team, and not shy about giving opinions on how to motivate and create, a very, really, really valuable team. Currently, they have approximately 1,500 employees, super high-end premium product, but more importantly, the way that they deliver their product and the value prop and the morals that they have is tremendous. So, Andrew, it's so wonderful to see you again. I do want to start with my first question about your LinkedIn presence and how comfortable you are talking about, the team members that you work with on a daily basis and the values that you bring with your family-run business to the actual organization.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. This is awesome. First off, it's really cool to see you doing this. It's been a long friendship of ours, 13 years, and to see what you've created for yourself and for your family and for the audience is just awesome, man. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, really the best part about being able to do this is we're able to connect with thought leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs all across the country. And, as I mentioned, the tagline of the show is where book smarts and street smarts collide. And we never say don't get your MBA at Harvard, Yale, wherever. But when you're, on the ground running a company, there's very specific challenges that people have, and there's lots that can be learned and imparted to anybody that wants to start. It might not be in healthcare, it might be something else, but just like gravity, it's a principle. There's a lot of tenets that are derived from, best practices and ways that people do things. And back to that question that I had about LinkedIn, I comment and like most of your stuff that's out there, but as a pretty visible, high profile guy, you're not shy about, being, I wouldn't say you're controversial with any of it, but you really get a good feel for like who you guys are and how you are retaining really, really good talent.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, for me, the LinkedIn presence came from a desire to connect with people. I didn't understand what LinkedIn was. I'm not a social media guy. I don't want to be an influencer per se, but because I didn't know what I wanted to learn it. And I put out on LinkedIn about 2 years ago, let's have lunch. And I got like 800 people for lunch over the course of like 6 months. It was crazy. It was awesome. Sorry, I didn't have people send me an email. We did like 200 lunches. It was fantastic. But that spawned what I have today, which is, this following that I'm cultivating just through honesty, right? Because we have about 1,500 employees, I can't talk to every person. I can't talk to each of our 2,500 customers. I can't connect with them. And because we're a third generation family business, I wanted to make sure there was some way for us to pass on the philosophy and the lessons that my grandparents and my parents and my siblings and I have been given through the years to our customer and to our employee. So the LinkedIn thing is really a way for me to connect with people and tell them what we're all about. My grandmother, who founded our business in 1952, always said that the easiest thing to clean are your hands. So get them goddamn dirty. So my way of connecting and getting dirty in a digital age is to write and to share those thoughts and those philosophies from a point of view that's truly out there. I don't want to I don't want to follow. I just want to share the things that are in my mind that have helped me get to where I am and pass those things on. I've been blessed with a lot of great resources through education, through mentorships, training, real life, experience, Ironman, hanging out with you, like being around people. So giving back is something that is important to me and is core to our company. So the LinkedIn component has been a function of giving back and trying to help one person. And if there's one thing I can pass on per day that might hit one person, it's a win. And I think that's really the core of being a human being, is trying to help somebody get better. And where I've fallen off in my practices and processes in life is getting too self-centered. And I think leadership in business is about being there for the customer and being there for your client and being there for your employee. So that's how I got on to LinkedIn. That's kind of why I'm doing it.
Have there been any negatives to being that visible with your philosophy, or any kind of negative ramifications?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think that I'm talking to them. I can think of one of my former colleagues who I really like a lot, and I inadvertently wrote something that touched a nerve, and I think I hurt him. And it was an intentional thing. Oftentimes I write about how I'm feeling, and I think with an audience that's I'm getting between probably 35,000 and 45,000 clicks a week on my LinkedIn page, I'm gonna hit a nerve. And it's not intentional, but I think the good far outweighs the bad. And life is a contact sport, and I stand behind what I write, and I stand by what I believe. And I'm also a person that will change my opinion based on a new fact. So when I did that and I heard that I hurt him, I really took a time to figure out where that came from, and was that intentional? It wasn't. And now I'm much more focused on the wording, and getting tighter and getting better. So I guess in the end, a bad thing, quote unquote, turned out to be a good thing. I have to be a better writer. I have to reduce the words down and make sure my points on. I can't just wing things. So like anything in life, the worst things in your world often turn out to be the best things.
Yeah, they're learning lessons. They can be. And it's pretty cool. Obviously, I'm sure you communicate as extensively internally, where it's really focused and driven. But does as a leadership style, often you see people kind of walled off in gardens and they don't really interact. But is that the culture that you have created in this family multi-generational business to have free sharing of ideas?
I think so. I think being in a family business, you have to balance the family and the business. And that balance is really understanding that each person's different and they have their own style. So I've accepted the way my brother and my sister and my other brother live their lives. And I'm proud of the culture that we've created. And when I coach my teams or work with my teams, we're a tight-knit group. We do one-on-one meetings bi-weekly. And those are an hour with me. And some days it's talking about their kids, right? Or the struggles with teenagers or college kids or marriages. And there are days it's talking about business. So the culture that we've created is, I think pretty good, and it's a family one. And when I do orientation every other Monday, I say to people, I hope at some point our family business becomes your family business. Because if we're doing our jobs correctly as a business, you're going to get paid. You're going to have chances to go to college. You're going to have a chance to get a degree, and help your kids in your life. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's people helping people. So do we get it perfect? Absolutely not. Could you talk to some folks like, that guy's a jackass? Absolutely. Right. But on balance, I think we do a really good job. And I'm in the culture that we've created has been very true to my grandparents and parents, which has been care first, do the right thing, even if it cost us some cash here or there, and be able to walk in the fire with the folks that are working with you. Coming from nursing homes and long-term care, the nurses' aides and the folks in the kitchen and housekeeping laundry, they give their blood, sweat, and tears. And as an owner of the business, we have to respect that and know that they're working their tails off. So we have to do the same thing. So I try and work as hard as the front line person and sacrifice and be there. And kind of go back to that old adage of don't ask people to do things that you
Yeah.
aren't willing to do yourself.
Yeah, it's about congruency, right? It's walking the walk. So if you're going to ask
Yeah.
someone to do something, then that's amazing. Now, the company as a whole, it seems to be just, as a lay person on the outside, has been on kind of a pretty high hockey stick vertical in terms of growth.
Mhm.
Um, are there any kind of like do-over way backs, like, with this growth, it becomes, pain points and pressure and stuff like that. But are there any things that you wish you knew when you started in this endeavor?
That's a great question, man. I think the one thing that I wish I knew, it might not tie back into the audience in terms of the metrics. I wish I knew that things take 2 to 3 times longer to happen than you want. And
Hmm.
then I also wish I knew that the 23-year-old version of me would be okay, right? I think a lot of the things that I've made mistakes with is not knowing I'll be okay and trusting the process.
Hmm.
Um, and what I mean by that is when we've failed, right? It's because we haven't trusted our process. We haven't trusted our people. We haven't trusted our metrics. And sometimes that fear creeps in, and fear is going to always get the worst of people. It's going to bring
In
out the
doubt,
worst.
in doubt,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
doubt
So
too.
it's
Right,
yeah.
right.
So I think the way I'd word it is the thing I wish I knew 20 years ago is I'll be okay, and the
Hmm.
company will be okay, and we have good people, and trust people and trust the process.
Mm, mm. And how difficult of an industry? I mean, you are delivering, obviously, as I mentioned, you by design always want to deliver a premium product. You're not
Mm,
in the masses. Quality versus quantity is at the
mm.
fore. Um, but how difficult of a space is it? I mean, I think we talked offline. We won't get into numbers, but the economics to have growth are pretty substantial to build these high end experiences.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap endeavor.
No,
So
it's not. So
you have to put your ass on the line pretty extensively.
yeah, you got to get comfortable with personal guarantees. So we came from long-term care, from nursing homes, and so we're founded in 1952 by my grandparents, and they had about an 18-bed nursing home. And today we're a 2,500 person healthcare system that has um, all levels of senior care connected. So for us, the challenge has been how do we decouple ourselves from the economics of long-term care? For a long time, it was a good business, meaning, 4 or 5% margins. I'm sure the audience is like, what the hell? 4% margins? That was pretty good for us, right? On a volume game. And
Yeah.
then so much of that space is, controlled by the insurance companies and the government. And over time, we've been given the death of 1,000 paper cuts. So the economic challenge for us to develop a high quality product in the higher end, the more premium end of our continuum, has been how to manage cash and really, not have a loss leader bring us to the grave. So we've been very
Mm,
creative. We purchased a visiting nurses company in 2012, and that has been a fantastic value add to our business, but bottom line, and our care practices. And that's allowed us to be able to intelligently decompress from our long-term care business. We started 2021 with 600 skilled beds, and we're going to end it with three. So we ended it with 300, and we're trying to figure out how to have higher and greater usages today while maintaining that level of service for our continuum of care.
mm,
As we've pivoted away from that high percentage of beds, we've added the independent living and the assisted living products, which are all private pay. So we're
mm,
able to now integrate our care skills into the living areas of these folks to really bring a value that's second to none. And we've created a product called Enhanced Care, which is a nursing home level care, not in a nursing home. And that really allows a person to be as independent as they can right through the end of their lives. So we can take a person at, I got a guy coming in that's 58, right? I got folks here that are 102. So we have this really wide depth and breadth of customer bases, but because we have the full continuum and because we've made hard choices to kind of trim some of the red areas of our business, we're able to now evolve to the future. So going back to what I said earlier, the worst things in our world always turn out to be the best. My brother and I had great heads of hair 15, 20 years ago. Now it's all gone, right? Because we worried so much about what we're going to do with long-term care. And now today we have this great product. So our ability to adapt has been really great. And our ability to add the right services has been great. And so now we're able to meet our client truly where they're at and where they want to be. And because of that ability, they're willing to pay for it. And I'm sure your audience and you, I know you really well, like you're a guy that really values a good service, the right things. You don't buy something, you buy the right thing and you're willing to pay for it. So now we have the right things for our right customer, and it's a much different world for us. Yeah. And we have great partners. We have great partners too. So we have AIG on board on the deal. We have AEW, PNC Bank. We have some great partners, and I'm really happy with them and their ability to be there for us and with us.
And do you have like a comparable type of an organization that one that you admire, or even if you emulate, because some of the best ideas are borrowed or stolen, right? But in terms of the vision of the organization, in my world in finance, we obviously have lots of comparables, but is there like a area of the country or a concept that you're like, wow, these guys are crushing it and this is what we should be doing? Or is this all self-germinated?
I would like, great question. If you ask my brother, I think he'd answer the question differently. Of course. I've always believed that the competition's internal, and that if we do our job the right way, I don't really care what someone else does because the choice is clear. That being said, there are a number of companies that I look at, and the areas that we look to are really Southern California, Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, really where there's some progressive ideas coming out. And then there's a number of high quality, well-heeled nonprofits that do some really cool stuff. The problem for me is we don't have a lot of folks that offer the full continuum of care. So we're a bit more complex at times. So that's why I go back to the internal game. If we can reduce something to produce something, that's great. That's an old Rick Rubin quote. To produce, you must do the reduction side to it. And so my brother's very plugged into the national world. We've got a great chief investment officer who's a stud, and he's always bringing us new ideas and thoughts. But for me, I focus more on what we're doing day to day. How do we have an interaction? So we have 2,500 customers each day. They all get probably 4 to 5 touches per day. So I have like 10,000 chances to screw up. So that's a lot of data I worry about.
A lot of data points. Yeah. Well, and in my world, and this is all about you, but we have an internal saying, it's 4 seasons service with FedEx efficiency. So
nice. I like that.
I was always impressed, like when you went to a hotel and they hello, Mr. Salmon, welcome to the hotel, and clearly they had earpieces and they knew the reservation, but it was all about service, right?
Mhm.
And so I personally draw on a lot of other industries outside of my own, just because I feel like we're just copying each other, and there's nothing new under the sun mostly. And when you look at the Amazons of the world who have crushed, a lot of businesses, and they look at how they've made it efficient, and it's just because it's the ease of use, and all that. So, are there any other industries outside of your specific space that you're like, yeah, those are some great ideas that we should bring? And I know there's one that I don't want to forget about this is
Okay.
the robot, because I think this says a lot about your innovation.
Yep.
But just to that question, is there any, do you consider yourself like an Apple, which is, not a cheap product, but they deliver an end-to-end experience that's better than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I look at all the top brands, the Four Seasons, Apple. I'm really into martial arts. So the guys over at
Hmm.
Art of Jiu-Jitsu,
Hmm.
our friend Jesse over at QT2 Systems for triathlon.
Hmm. Hmm.
I tend to look at the companies that do the basics at a high level, right? If they can do the basics at an elite level in every single time, get the bed feeling the right way, or the coffee tastes perfect every time, right? But they're so fundamentally sound day to
Hmm.
day. That's what I want for our company. I want our company to be the best at doing the basics, because most times people outthink themselves, and the enemy of good is great. So if we can do the basics at an elite level, you can do anything. So when you
Yeah.
look at the products I've talked about, they make the unsexy stuff really sexy,
Sick.
because it just
Yeah.
works. Like, just do the foundational things. What are the 3 or 4 things we have to do every day, and go from there? And then I look to a lot of writers, um, like Ryan Holiday, Stephen Pressfield, those kind of characters that are really talking about the inner resistance, the Stoic philosophies, doing the basics, and
Hmm.
really being humble and being present. And when you look at the leadership of the Four Seasons, or Jesse, or the guys from AOJ, they're humble, but they're confident. There's a quiet confidence, because they know they're prepared, they know their systems work, and they're constantly looking at how they can get better, not looking at how others really come in and affect them. And,
Yeah.
and so on the
So,
bot, man, the robot, do you want to go there
yeah, but
next? Sorry to cut you off.
yeah, I'll go there in a second. Yeah, no, it's okay.
Okay,
This is. I would just take a pause here for the listeners watching the show. You're just
sure.
getting a very small portion of Andrew's philosophical approach to business and life. But if you definitely want to subscribe to his stuff, because you're a prolific reader and writer. But it's a small sample of some really valuable lessons here. But you're constantly pushing that out, which I admire. I mean, there's
Thank
very
you.
few people on LinkedIn that I follow, and I'm always like, wow, this really makes sense. Um, I was going to say, maybe as a philosophy, and we have it internally with what we do, is we say, just because it's not broken doesn't mean it can't be fixed. And, being settling with, average, and just kind of looking at things from a different perspective. But I push my team all the time and say, I want you to test this and see if it's broken, and find out from a consumer's perspective how they're looking at it. And I always say, just because it's not broken doesn't mean it can't be improved upon or fixed. And it sounds like that's what you also do. Would you consider yourself more of a process oriented person, or more of a visionary?
Oh, that's a great question. Uh, I think I think if you ask my wife, I'm more
Mhm.
vision. If you ask me, I'm more process. And here's why I say that. I think most people who have a vision, behind that vision is a process. Like, if I ask you how you're going to grow this podcast, or how you want to attack a new client, there's a vision there, but you know the process. So internally, I'm very process driven. I'm a creature of habit. Um, and most people don't understand that about me. I don't really talk about it very much, I don't think. But I think the outside world would call me a vision person. And internally, I'd say I'm a process person, because I've been lost a lot in life. And the only way I found to get back to where I felt comfortable was through a consistent process of, exercise, eating, those kind of things. And at
Hmm.
work, when I get off of my process, I become kind of ornery. So I would say I'm process driven versus
Hmm.
vision driven.
Yeah, obviously you're multifaceted, but it's hard to label anybody one thing. But sometimes there's a leaning side that
Yeah.
kind of carries over. Yeah, I do want to talk about one of the other LinkedIn posts, which I thought was really cool. Is I was trying to like, what am I looking at here? And then it made a lot of sense. I want you to talk about it today, but you put a video out, which was I've never seen in that setting, but you have a bot that
Mhm.
basically is automated and it's AI driven, but it is now basically bringing trays and expanding kind of the real time feedback and services to your customers. So tell me how that came up and what was the thinking behind that and what is it doing for you?
Yeah, so I think the staff here would get upset by calling her a bot. It's Wilhelmina, dude. Come on.
Wilhelmina, okay.
Yeah, Wilhelmina. They've named it. So our customers named it. So the bot just kind of popped into my inbox one day. I never really opened spam stuff, but I saw this email from Bear Robotics. I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. And they have this bot, and it's a service bot for the kitchen. So I called them and got in a Zoom call, and I think this is kind of neat. So the bot is able to bring trays from the kitchen to our main restaurant. And when I was looking through it, it was the peak of the post-COVID uh, crisis for staffing. And I'm like, this can really be cool because we're a 24/7 operation. And, in July and August, staff come to work. But when it's December and January and there's a blizzard, guess what? They call out. So I wanted to have something that could help us in good times and bad times. And the bot is perfect. It's a very affordable product. It is all AI driven. They download all the maps for the building, and it is tied back to our system. So if you and your family are sitting having dinner in our restaurant at table 206, and there's 4 tables, there's 4 spots in the bot. They just plug the order directly into seat 1, 2, 3, 4. And then when the food comes up, the kitchen sends the bot out. So that
Mhm.
prevents the servers from having to run back and forth. It improves their ability to connect with the customer and make sure the food's topped off, the wine's topped off, all that stuff's ready to go. And it also protects them because they're not carrying those big trays, 30, 40, 50, 200 feet. And they're carrying things like hot water, coffee, and I don't want to spill them. So the residents really enjoy it because it's a hoot to see around. I
Mhm.
love it. And the best part is our staff dig it. I thought they'd hate it. I
Yeah,
thought they'd see it as a way to cut out staff.
right.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
but we've really been able to integrate it into their workflow, and it's a core component now of what happens in our kitchen day to day here at the Willows and Whitney Place of Medway.
Yeah, and I would think that with that extra uh, deploying the manpower in a more customer friendly perspective, so if a basic task you have more bandwidth now, then those employees can focus on other skill sets and other deliverables. So they get freed up, but they get to repurpose themselves into a better experience all the way around. Is that accurate?
Absolutely accurate. And the other byproduct is the people that are doing these bots are very, very smart. And
Hmm.
so when they bring in their on-site staff to program, there's a rub, right? There's a good energy. And I think when you're partnering with the right vendors and the right people, it's a one-on-one makes three, right?
Hmm.
They got their thing done, we got our thing done, but that connection created something else. They were here for about a week and they were really engaged. They helped us with the bot, but they also were able to pass on their good energy and their good thoughts to our staff. And now we can carry those things over because they ask great questions. I think great questions lead to great outcomes. So that was one thing I was surprised about. I didn't think that the on-site team that they'd send would have such an impact. the way that they did.
Yeah, and if you're not comfortable answering this question, but is this something that you think is that you would increase in terms of, because it seemed like it was a beta in the beginning, but
Yeah,
if you're, I don't want to trade secrets or
absolutely.
whatever, but
No, man, you know me forever, dude. I'm an open book. I don't care. Yeah, absolutely. So we signed a 1-year contract with them for one bot. They're coming out with some new features. I would hope and expect that over the next 24 months, we would add more to them. And particularly as we get a younger employee base, I think that, you know, the any generation that's coming up always gets a bad rap, right? From the older guys or gals. This generation
Mhm,
coming up is really cool. They want to do the right thing. They want to be engaged. They want to be around the customer. They want the interaction. They want meaning. And they also embrace technology.
mhm,
So I'm really bullish on our ability to integrate these bots throughout our continuum of care when we can. During COVID, we had the country's first COVID only nursing home, and
mhm,
we had a bot there as well. So the bot was able to go up to the COVID neighborhood and provide telehealth. So
mhm,
the doctor was popping on the screen the same way we're doing this meeting today. So
mhm.
technology has a real important place,
Yeah.
and I think we have to embrace it. And with a culture of employees that's willing to try something new, it's a great environment. And so that
Mhm,
culture is being created with natural turnover as the boomers begin to exit the space for work. We have to backfill those jobs, and by nature, they're going to be younger. So I think we
mhm,
have a real opportunity. So I want to see these bots continue to be a presence for us going forward. And I really believe that the bot companies are putting the right resources in play to have something that's a true value add for the whole
mhm,
group versus just a product that they can push and make money off. So that's why I
yeah.
really liked working with Bear, is that
Mhm,
they really wanted to understand how their bot helps,
mhm,
right? They didn't want to say, hey, buy the bot and take it and go on.
yeah.
They want to know the why, the what, the how, and the when, so they
Mhm,
can go back and build something better in the future.
mhm, yeah. And as a pretty, you're in a huge demographics, probably, I don't know the actual numbers, you know better than myself, but it's the largest segment of the population is in the space that you're operating in. How do you say no to things? I'm sure you're being hit all the time and maybe have, visions of growing or, growing too fast, but how do you filter out like some of the noise that's being presented to you on a regular basis?
Just say no, man. Like Reagan said, man, just say no. Um, Jokes aside, we want to do what we can do really well. So when my brother and I and my our board and our family look at things, it's, can we do this the right way? Do we have the right partner to work with on the capital side to get the deal done? Um, do we have the right demographics in terms of, are we in the right town? We're in great towns. You know, do we? I guess the simple answer is, are we able to be us? And if we're being asked to do things that are not in our culture, not in our wheelhouse, and won't be a, a value add to our customer and to our continuum, we're going to
Mhm,
say no. And historically, we've been able to get into communities that are tough to get into because they're tight knit. Uh,
mhm,
Sharon, Natick, Westboro, Northborough, Worcester, Medway, Milford. We've been able to get into those networks and towns because we're a local company that invests back. We give back to charities. We
mhm.
give back to schools and those kind of things.
You're a
So for
community
us,
player for sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so it's probably not the answer you were looking for, but
No,
it has to
I
fit
don't
what
think
we're
there's a
doing.
right answer. Yeah, but that
Yeah.
is the answer at the end of the day. Again, it all comes back to your morals and your values, and that you want to deliver a great experience, a great product, and
Yeah.
sometimes people get the growth bug and they put it out there and then they backpedal trying to make it work, and doesn't always work that way. Many businesses, you think the Blackberries of the world or whoever, where
Yeah.
they lost focus of who they were and what they were delivering, and they got their asses handed to them by more nimble, more focused players. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And
Yeah, and we're not perfect.
so
We made a bunch of
yeah,
mistakes, right? So
of
we're
course.
learning those now and making some course corrections. So I want to come back in 18 months and answer that question
We'll
because
have you back for sure. Yeah.
we're in a period of time where we're transitioning. So
Hmm.
we have grown. We're going to do a little, reorg with some things, and then
Hmm.
sold some assets and going to go back on a growth path. So I think
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to coming back in 18 months and telling you what's up.
All right. That's a deal on my end. If you're willing to come back, I'd love to hear it.
I'm in. Absolutely.
So oftentimes when people run companies, they have a path that they want to sell. Like, is that ever a motivator for you to say, like, we want to kick at this for like 5, 10 years, and then we want to, go off into the sunset and have a major liquidity event? Is that a motivator for you at all, or part
No,
of your lexicon?
no, no. Our business was founded by my grandparents in 1952. They had 5 boys and no money. My parents bought the business in the 60s, and they're super humble people. And I remember one of the things I was probably 18 or 19, and the Powerball thing was going on, and it
Hmm.
was like $200 million or what it was. I'm like, Dad, what would you do if you got $200 million? He goes, I'd probably take most of it and put it into the employee 401k plan or the pension plan.
Mm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I've been blessed with parents that are pretty humble.
Hmm.
They're very faithful. They're Catholic. They believe, and they give back. So would I embrace the chance to sell to change our family's future forever? Maybe, but every day I get up trying to do the best I can for the people that live and work here. And if we were able to sell the business for their betterment, I would. Um,
Hmm.
and I want to make sure that when we are doing things, it's for the right reasons. I am not flying private jets. I don't want to. I just want to be able
Wow.
to put a good
We can
life
we
there
can
for the
still be
kids.
friends. We can still be friends then.
I'll take your jet, dude. That's why I have friends like
No,
you
I
guys.
don't
I
need.
just want to be the guy.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
carry your
yeah,
bag.
yeah. Hey, yeah. It's like it's friends with boats, right? You don't
Yeah,
need a boat, right?
exactly. No, but I think my ego would say yes, I'd want the money. And I think if I got that money, I truly wouldn't be happy. I
Yeah.
would be looking for the next thing. And when I coach my clients, I have a side business for coaching. And when I coach my clients, they're mainly successful men. And they've
Hmm.
climbed all the mountains and they're still unhappy. So
Yeah.
happiness is that inside job. So we
Hmm.
are going to do what's best for our business. And do I think that our continuum is going to stay the same forever? Absolutely not. Will we sell a piece here or there? We're going to have to at some point, right? Things have to change at some point. But I
Hmm.
want to say that a recap or a liquidity event is not what we're after. We're after stable growth year over year and being able to provide the right product. And that if we are in a growth path and we're missing the target, we have to hit pause, because if we don't come back to the right goals and ideas, it's all for naught.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
so
that
yeah.
makes sense. We're just about to wrap up in a quick sec, but a lot of entrepreneurs across the country watch this podcast, as I mentioned.
Mhm.
Do you have a couple takeaways, like for someone who is, on a similar path to you? Is there any, like, couple takeaways that your younger self would have? So you talked about the patience thing, which was really
Yeah.
important. But are there any kind of like gems that you throw out there for an entrepreneur running a really, really successful business?
Yeah, I think so. I think the one thing is ignore the noise, right? There's gonna be a lot of people in your ear telling you X or Y. believe what you know.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I think my dad always said, trust but verify.
Hmm.
And then find your process and lean into people and their processes that you enjoy and you respect, but also look at things that you don't enjoy. And
Hmm.
that old adage, get comfortable being uncomfortable. Do
Hmm.
hard things. Like you've done Ironman with me, right? You're doing
Hmm.
boxing now. Put yourself in uncomfortable positions and use the resources out there that are free to craft and dabble in things. Try different ideas and really go after it. And the other thing is keep it simple. I had a professor in college that said that old adage that KISS, keep it simple, stupid. He goes, that's too
Yeah.
long. He goes,
Right.
drop the stupid, but keep it simple. And everything that I really enjoy in life are the little things. Invest in yourself, invest in your people, believe internally what you're doing is correct, and be open to an ability to change given new info and read.
Yeah.
Read, write, and really put your thoughts out there and conquer fear. Make
Hmm.
fear something that you're comfortable with. It's scary. Payrolls are scary. Guarantees are scary. Financing is scary. But
Yeah.
you know what? In the end, it doesn't matter. Just do
Hmm.
you. That's all.
Yeah. Well, that's the best high note to end on right there. For just for our listeners, would remind you to smash that like button if you would, and the subscription button. We'd love to get your followership. Andrew, it's awesome to connect, and we're definitely going to have you back in 18 months. For
Awesome.
our listeners who want to know more about Salmon Health and Retirement, your information will be inside the body of the show. But what's the best way to get a hold of you? Would that be LinkedIn?
Yeah, just hit me on LinkedIn. Um, DM me. I do all my own stunts, so there's no one behind the scenes. And let's have lunch. I mean, one of the things that I really, really enjoy is having lunch with people.
Hmm.
So send me an email or whatever on LinkedIn, DM, and let's connect. And I'm an open book, so let's open that book together and try and find out whether there's a connection there that works.
That's
So,
amazing. Well, Andrew,
Mark,
thank
thank
you
you very
so
much,
much for
man.
coming on the show. And like I said, we'll see you in 18 months or maybe sooner.
Awesome. Can I ask you one question?
Sure, absolutely.
So I'm scared of doing a podcast. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to me to start a podcast?
Yeah, I was in the beginning too, just because, I get inside my head and I think about things. But the most important thing is to be your authentic self and let your true personality come out. I had a media coach that I've been working with because I've transitioned to live TV, which is a whole different vibe. But the
Mm,
podcast helped me with the byproduct of the podcast and the TV media appearances is it's really helped me communicate and articulate to the people I interact with on a regular basis much better. When you get to see, and similar to what you alluded to, don't be afraid to look stupid. A lot of people like really spend a lot of time of over obsessing about how they look and how they sound and whether or not people are going to be interested. But I think if you look at some of the bigger podcasts, like the Joe Rogans of the world, all different personalities, but you see who they really are. They're not, you can't fake it. Like if you're going to try to be a personality or somebody that you're really not, it's not gonna carry. But live TV is very different just because they're only like 3-4 minutes and you're talking in sound bites, which
mhm.
my wife laughs at oftentimes because I think of a couple words to start a segment, and that's you only have a couple seconds on live TV to get someone to pay attention. So you talk in sound bites, and it's really funny. But the technology, the cost of entry is so inexpensive. But it's really a way to have like a conversation. Like you've probably been to fireside chats and things like that. But it's really a great experience, and it reaches a very large audience. And writing and words are great, but there's a lot lost in intimation and the way
Mm.
that you are presenting stuff. So It's been a great growth experience for me, and my business partner was the person who started the shrimp tank across the country. And yeah, I was always interested in, like, I think we have a lot of interesting things to talk about, especially in the business and entrepreneurial world. And it was just a way to kind of take that knowledge and pay it forward because, so many people don't have that access to being able to walk into an entrepreneur. And we've had multi-billionaires on this show. Some of the most successful people on the planet, have come on this show, and they're so thoughtful in sharing their time and their insight of some of the mistakes and some of because not a lot of people will talk about their failures, they'll just talk about the wins. And most often where an entrepreneur is starting, they're afraid sometimes, they don't know, and to hear someone get to a certain level but they've made every mistake under the sun is really a lot of fun. And I think that's what but whatever direction, you just have to know what your purpose is, like what actually you're trying to do. If you're just putting a podcast on just to hang out with friends, it might not be that interesting.
Yeah.
But our mission, what we do is we talk to entrepreneurs, and the tagline is where book smarts and street smarts collide. But it's just about the people that are doing the grind, they're in there, and then there's so many valuable kernels that come out of those whole experiences. And I can help you offline too and get connected. It's super easy to do. I mean, before COVID, we used to be in studio, and most of the cities in our shrimp tank network still go back. But me being able to do this on Zoom has opened up the whole world for me to pull on guests that I wouldn't be comfortable asking them to come all the way into Boston and take 2-3 hours of their day out to sit in a studio. That's good too, because you get to have a little bit more fun. But for me, I can call someone in the UK and have them on there when they're never going to be able to come into the studio. So yeah, it's like anything. It's like all the stuff we've tried with Ironman. Like you said, you put yourself out there, you try to grow, and what I always loved about Ironman, there was this little devil that was trying to have you cry uncle. And it's all about like being internal and like how far can you push yourself to figure out what you're made of. And really, quite candidly for me, Ironman, even the finish was always anticlimactic. It was always the training, all the crap around it. The race was just a celebration of all the things that happened before that. And you learn so much about yourself when you put yourself out there and you test in different areas.
Yeah. And I was always behind you on the bike. So
not on the run though.
I never said
that. The
devil was always the super I couldn't see because I was always in front of me.
Oh my God. Yeah. So far, I'm going to conclude this guy here is one of the fastest human beings on the planet when he's running. So that's a skill set I never had or never will. Awesome, my man. Well, I'm going to wrap up the show here. Perfect. Yeah. Thanks so much. All right. Have a great day. And thanks for coming on the show.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in a shrimp tank.